Shalom everyone, Shavua Tov, and we are now in Parashat Ekev. This is a very, very powerful parasha because you have a lot of sentences in this parasha that are so that are ingrained. It's like they're so famous in Hebrew, also in English, and I'll explain it. Parashat Ekev, it's in the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, chapter 7, verse 12. That's where it starts. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם. First of all, something that is very important. The word is vaya ekev. Ekev means to follow, or following, which means cause and effect. Ekev. Yeah, ekev. Now you can. There is a mix between akev, a heel, but also when you walk with the dog and you give him an order to follow you, you say heel, right?
Yeah.
To the dog, heel. Okay, so והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם. Here comes a very important expression that repeats itself the whole book of Devarim, which is ושמרתם ועשיתם. Shmartem means is being translated usually as to observe, although in Hebrew the word, the verb shamor means to guard. To guard. A shomer is a guard.
Yeah.
So, and the question is, why Moses needs always these two verbs coming together? Shmartem v'asitem, lishmor ve'la'asot. Which means, like one verb is not enough, you need always these two. And we'll see the whole parasha is just about this issue. Now, what is shmartem? Shmartem comes from the word shamor, shomer, to guard, not to observe. I'll give you an example. An observer is somebody who looks at stuff and he reports if he feels like. Okay? While in the Hebrew language, the word shomer, a guard, let's say we're talking about the legal aspect of a guard. Let's say you have a jewel box and you're going to visit family abroad, somewhere else. You're afraid that somebody's going to steal your jewel box. So you give it to a neighbor to be shomer. And there are two legal positions. One is shomer sachar, somebody you pay him to keep an eye, to watch your jewel box, and there's shomer chinam, somebody does you a favor, you don't pay him. Both have a legal responsibility and liability if something happens to that jewel box. The moment you hand it over to them, and that's not an observer. You know, an observer, you can come back after a few weeks coming back from abroad, and you come and the observer says, oh, I observed somebody stole your jewel box. That's an observer. He reports to you. A guard supposed to actually make an attempt to prevent the theft from happening. And if he does not prevent it, he has to pay a fine. This is the Jewish law. Okay? The responsibility. Exactly. So, in order for the shomer to be responsible, he has to watch it, guard it, and to be aware of it. And he has, what I mean to watch it, it means to be focused on it. Let's say, in modern Hebrew, let's say somebody is put, a soldier, in a position, he's the guard on the entrance to the base, to the army base. Now, his commander is coming once in a while to see what's going on, and he sees that the guard is playing with his smartphone. In Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, like army jargon, it's called shavar shmira. He broke the guardians. Why? What did he break? He was still standing on that position. The moment you're not focused on the subject of your guard, you're not guarding anymore. So here we understand that the word shomer is not observant. Shomer is somebody who has a liability and responsibility. What's the difference between shomer ve'oseh, shmartem v'asitem? Because when somebody is performing the mitzvot, the actions that are mentioned in the Torah, when somebody is performing the mitzvot, he has two aspects, and we spoke a lot about it in the past weeks. One aspect is the physical action itself, which is ve'asitem. If you know some Kabbalah, that's connected to olam asiyah, this world, the world that we perceive, whatever I can see, I can hear, I can understand with my brain. But there's another world. This is the spiritual, metaphysical world. That every mitzvah, by doing the mitzvah, you have to have the consciousness that you connect a spiritual world with a physical world, a spiritual dimension with a physical dimension. And that's called a mitzvah because the word mitzvah means a precept, but in Hebrew it comes also from the word tutim, tzevet, letzavet, to bring together the consciousness, ushmartem, guarding, being aware, taking responsibility, vasitem, it's also doing the action. That's why we say there's a European, it's not Hebrew, but there's a European saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Now if you add the Jewish aspect, it's paved with good intentions without good actions. If you only have good intentions without the actions, that's a road to hell. If you want the road to heaven, you need also to make the action, not just to have good intentions. So, and how do you see and how do you understand that? Because what did we say the name of Parasha? Ekev. Cause and effect. That follows that. What follows if you do that? If you have the observance and the action, if you understand that every action that you have has a spiritual dimension that you have to be careful about and you have to take responsibility for, okay? Which is called the kavanah, the intention, the meditation behind it. If you do that, then the verse continues, Veshamar Hashem Elokecha lach et habrit, lecha et habrit ve'et hachesed asher nishba la'avotecha. And then the result will be that the Lord your God will, the word Shamar appears again, will guard what? For you, the covenant and the chesed, the loving kindness that He promised to your forefathers. Which means, God's promises never change. Why? He's God. He doesn't change. But the question is, if God is promising someone something, does that apply always? No. It's like, it's sometimes in a fiduciary, till it's conditioned. It's like we got a lot of blessing, but this is conditioned that we draw it from the bank. If you don't draw it from the bank, the money is there, but you cannot, it's not yours. Till you go and you have to draw it from the bank. It doesn't come automatically to your home, or to your pocket, or to your wallet. You have to make an action. And that's why the Zohar says in another place, in Parashat Mishpatim, that the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying that the Torah has 613 advices for a person to complete his soul, or her soul. Which means, why does God have to give us so many rules? And the answer is, He doesn't have to. It's not for Him, it's for us. These are the ways we can tap into a banking account and we can withdraw what is there waiting, and it's already deposited there. When God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all the promises, it's already deposited in our account. Every time we make a mitzvah, we pull out, we draw what is there, ours. But we have to make an action. And making the action physically, it's not enough, because like everything in life, you know it very well, to get by, it doesn't work. You have to put your heart and your soul. And that means ushmartem. So you have two dimensions, the spirit, the soul, the consciousness, and with the liability and the responsibility, together with the physical action of doing the stuff. Now, you do that, then comes verse 13, and He will love you, and will bless you, and multiply, and bless the fruit of your loins, and the fruit of your land, and whatever it's all coming, which means it's already done. The question is, would you do what is needed in order to withdraw the blessing from its place? Now, the promise goes on, and then in chapter 8 is verse 1. It continues. כל המצווה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, all that mitzvah that I give you today, תשמרון לעשות. Again, the two verbs. You will shomer, be shomer, and to do. Again, consciousness and action. למען תחיון, so you will live. ורביתם, and you multiply. And so on. And then it continues. Something that is very hard to understand. Verse 2 in chapter 8 in Deuteronomy. וזכרת את כל הדרך אשר הוליכך השם אלוקיך זה 40 שנה במדבר. And you will remember the way, the road that the Lord your God took you for 40 years in the desert. Okay? למען ענותך, לנסחותך, לדעת את אשר בלבבך, תשמור מצוותיו ולא. Now the verb that is being used, למען ענותך, לנסותך. Now, I checked in some translations into English. It says ענותך, which this verb appears a few more times. ענותך is being translated as to inflict you, but it's not the Hebrew. The Hebrew, it sounds like torture. So God is torturing you.
Inflict
to
is also in a way.
Inflict is in a way,
Pain or
yes, but we'll see anotcha in simple Hebrew. Today's Hebrew. Le'anot is to torture. Le'nasotcha, to test you. Ladat et asher bilvavecha, to know what's in your heart. Okay, and then verse 3, Vaya'ancha vayerevecha, and then he inflicted you, and he made you starve, Vayachilcha et manna, and he gave you to eat the manna. So, did you starve or did you eat the manna? It's like, if you ate the manna, you're not starving. If you're starving, you're not eating the manna, right? Asher lo yadata v'lo yadun avotecha, but the manna was something you never experienced before, and your ancestors never experienced before. Leman odi'alacha, in order to inform you, or to let you, give you the knowledge, ki lo ala lechem levado yichyeh adam. The person cannot live only by the bread, right? There is an expression like this. It's from Moses' words. You know, a lot of people, they say you don't have to be religious. I'm working so hard early in the morning till late at night. Even at night, I'm getting from the boss emails from the suppliers, from the customers. There's not even 1 minute of, I'm not here just to work in order to live and live in order to work. It's like, what about, that's when you use the word, I'm not here just for the bread. Which means, what about, fun, going for vacation, listening to an opera, reading a book. That's the expression, right? That people say it without understanding, without knowing. These are Moses' words 34 centuries ago. That's where it's taken from. Why? Then it continues, Ki al kol motza pi Hashem yichyeh adam. Not by on the bread it's alone the man will live, but from what's coming of God's mouth. Now, how do you translate that? By the way, I will come back. And then that paragraph is ended with verse 10, Ve'achalta ve'savata u'verachta. You should eat, you should be satiated, and you should bless et Hashem Elokecha, the Lord your God, al haaretz hatova asher natan lach, on the good land he gave you. And that is part of the Birkat HaMazon, the blessing after the food. Okay, so if you know a little bit of tradition, you know that by heart also. So these are very, very famous words, but what's the meaning for our lives today, and why using the word torture? Now, in order to understand that, that why God says, I tortured you, inflicted you, tortured you. Why would God torture somebody? And there's a secret in it. No, there's a secret. We'll see the secret. Rabbi Zakloria, the great Kabbalist of the last 500 years, he taught basically only in Safed, in Tzfat, in the 16th century. He was teaching there for a very short time. Most of his life he lived in Cairo, Egypt. He was born in Jerusalem. But nobody knew about his greatness till he came to Tzfat, to Safed, and he taught over there. And his legacy, his huge legacy, it's about 18 months he lived in Tzfat and taught over there. That's a legacy that we're still learning. Most of Kabbalah around the world, people study Kabbalah, it's basically on his teachings. Okay, so he says something very important. When we read, Ki lo al halechem levado yechya adam, a person will not live on the bread alone, but al kol motza pi Hashem yechya adam, or what comes out of the mouth of God. But it says there's a code. And what is the code? The word motza. Motza can be simply translated what comes out of God's mouth. But motza, says Rabbi Zakloria, is also is the same letters as the word soma. Soma in Aramaic or in Hebrew, tzom, fasting. We're talking about Yom Kippur. What about Yom Kippur? So, Rabbi Zakloria explains like this. The Arizal is explained this way. When the world was being created, as we explained in previous weeks, it was perfect. But then it was too perfect. And when something is too perfect, you feel useless. And people don't like to feel useless. They like to feel them being needed by someone, by something. Okay? So let's say if you do something good to others, then you feel good, first of all, for yourself, because you did something. We were created in the image of God. And when we create some light, some goodness, we feel great about it. Now, because we were created in the image of God. So A, because of that, we don't like favors, because God doesn't need anybody's favors. Okay? B, we enjoy giving, because by giving we create. And what do we create? So we learned that it says in Genesis, in the beginning of Genesis chapter 1, and God said, let there be light. And then it says, and God saw that the light was good. Says the Holy Zohar. What does it mean, and that he saw the light was good? All good that people can experience and feel is a derivative. It's an extension of that light of God. Why? When a person feels great, he says, I'm full of light. I'm enlightened. When a person is giving and sharing, he's enlightened. He's an enlightened person, right? So we use light together with good. You brought light into my life. Somebody you love, okay? Oh, this action really lit my face.
Light up my
life. Light up my life. This is a very... people use that in many languages. So we're not talking about physical light. We're talking about the spiritual light. Now, in order for us to feel important, that light had to be broken and shattered, and that's the breaking of the vessel. And finally, because of the sin of Adam, that light of the creation fell into many places. It fell into the inanimate, vegetable, animal kingdom, and the human kingdom. So every person has some light inside, and our job as humans is to elevate that light. And that's why in every action that we do, there is an aspect of light. And that aspect, the connection to that light, of elevating that light, lifting it up by our consciousness is called, that's the aspect that we spoke before about the shmirah, the guarding. Why? What was Adam's job in the Garden of Eden? To guard it and to walk it. Le'ovda in Leshuma. Here we have the same verb again. So we continue Adam's work in the Garden of Eden when we have the spiritual consciousness focusing on whatever we do. What we do, we basically continue the work of the Garden of Eden, which means we draw that light, we draw the spiritual light from everything we do. And that means, according to the Torah, there is nothing that does not have a spiritual dimension. Everything has a spiritual dimension, which means cooking, growing food. And that's why the Torah covers up all of those areas, because all of them are related to what? Light. It's a light of God. There's a light of God of everything. There's no spirituality and life. Life is about spirituality, and spirituality is about life. And if you're not aware of it, that every action has a spiritual dimension, you're not a real spiritual person. Okay? You cannot have spirituality when you go to meditate in India or you go to the synagogue, and then there's life, and you buy and you sell without any spiritual consciousness. So I'd like to bring this very famous story, maybe many of you have heard already, to explain that. After I read what the Zohar says about it. And the Zohar says, "Ve'achata ve'savata u'verachta et Hashem Elokecha," and you should eat, and you should be satiated, and you bless the Lord your God. Mitzvah zo, it's a mitzvah. And as we said, mitzvah is not just the action, it's the action together with the consciousness of bringing in spiritual light in what you're doing. Okay? And a person has to bless God al kol ma she'achal ve'shata ve'nehena ba'olam hazeh. Whatever the person is eating, drinking, enjoying, there are blessings for that. Why you have blessings? Not because God needs your blessings, but because when you make the blessing, you draw from the cosmic account, you draw God's bliss. Why? Because if you don't bless, if you don't bless, you are a robber. You're a robber. What's wrong about robbing? What's wrong about it? I see it. I like it. Let's say the guy has a lot of it. Let's say the guy is a billionaire, and let's say I like some, he has about 50 cars. Okay? I stole only one. And you know what? Not the most expensive. I stole one car. Is that allowed? No. But the guy won't notice even. He has so many cars. He's a multi-billionaire. You're not allowed. Why are you not allowed? Is it because God says so? No. As we said many times. A lot of people who have no idea what the Torah is about, they think in the academy, because it's called academy, they know what they're talking about. But they have no idea. And what do they say? They try to say that Mount Sinai revelation was not a big event because, let's say, it says, do not steal also in the code of laws of the Egyptian kingdom. It says also, do not steal in the Hammurabi codes of law, which is in the Sumerian culture, civilization, in Mesopotamia, today's Iraq, in the ancient times, before Mount Sinai revelation. So what do we have to hear? Do not steal. And my answer is, as I said a few times, it is a huge difference. Because in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, and in other countries and kingdoms and civilizations till not long ago, the do not steal said you cannot steal from another, let's say, another person in the country, but the government, the king, he steals everything. That's why you're not supposed to steal it, because there's only one who steals over here, which is the king. Okay? If the king wants your car, he will take your car. If he wants your life, he will take your life. If he wants your daughter, he will take your daughter. Wasn't it like this not long ago in the history of mankind? So when it says do not steal, it applied only to the subjects of every kingdom. It didn't apply to the king. The king was above the law. When it says do not steal in the Torah, it says, do not steal, period. Even if you are the king, if you are in power, you do not steal. Why? Not because order has to be there and the rules have to be obeyed, but because there's a problem about stealing. What's the problem about stealing? Did we say that the Torah speaks about the mitzvot as advices? So here comes advice. I like this picture. Okay, I gave this example many times. One day everybody will understand. I like this picture. Why do I like it? I enjoy using it. Enjoying using it comes from where? And God said, let there be light. So there's a light of God in that picture. That's why I paid some money to buy that picture. Because why I didn't do something else? Because I knew I'm going to enjoy using it. So there are two aspects to the picture. There's a physical aspect to the picture. I can touch it, I can see it, whatever. But the aspect of enjoying it, it's invisible. And when we learned about the temple in Jerusalem and about the destruction of the temple, we learned from the Arizal that the people who witnessed, the righteous people who witnessed the burning of the temple, they were not that upset, they were even happy. Why? Because what they saw is only the last layer of the temple was burned, only the Heichal. But the other inner dimensions, 99.99% of the temple stayed standing the way it was. The real temple, the real Beit HaMikdash, hasn't been destroyed. Okay? Now, what the Kabbalah is explaining, what Rabbi Zakloria is explaining, what the Zohar is explaining. Let's say I want to enjoy it. If I steal it, I can steal the external part, the visible part. But the 99.99%, the real part, you cannot steal. So, even stealing, it's a bother, right? It's investing of time. Sometimes you have to buy tools for that. There's some investment in it. And what the Torah is saying, it doesn't pay to steal. Why? Because you want it, because you want to enjoy it. There's no bracha. There's no bliss. Why? Because you can steal only the external, but the internal you cannot steal. The internal you have to connect to it properly. And that is about everything. So that's a big difference in Mount Sinai revelation and the Egyptian law and we know that that all over the world, in England, it's only 1215 with the Magna Carta that a person became a citizen instead of a subject. That the king cannot just take his belongings just because he feels like. How many years after Mount Sinai revelation? Quite about 2,500 years at least. Okay, if not 24. Okay, a long time till the British got it. When did the French get it? Oh, that took them till the 18th century. That's also when the Americans got it. They didn't really get it because there was still a lot of slaves in America. And it says in the Torah, Gonev ishu mecharo mot yumat, somebody who steals a person and sell him as a slave is death sentenced, which means taking somebody's freedom to own stuff, to own happiness, to be a master to his life. Taking that away, it's like killing. When did America reach that? 1860? 1863, right? With Abraham Lincoln? So, what the Zohar is speaking about, if you do not do blessing, you are a thief. What do you mean a thief? Belongs to God, he won't give it to me? No, he wants to give it to you. But you have to push the button. You have to ask for it. When you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, the Rabbi Zakloria said, when you say Baruch, you open up the funnel of blessing. You open up the cachet. You open up the account. Baruch has initials of Bet for Bina. So let's go to the order. Keter is Kaf of the word Baruch. Chokhmah is the Reish, Reshit Chokhmah. Then you have Bet for Bina, and the Vav is Dat. Keter Chokhmah Bina Dat, that's the upper levels. You start to activate the outer treasure, the upper treasure. Ata Hashem Elokeinu, Chesed Gvura Tiferet, you bring down that light, and then Amotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, then you turn the key, and then whatever you want is coming down. So it's not that you bless God because He needs your blessing. He doesn't need your blessing, I'm sorry to tell you. He wants you to be happy, but that's your part. You can bring the horse to the water, but you cannot force him drink. You can bring the person to anything of pleasure, but you can't force him enjoy it. And in order to enjoy it, you have to connect to the part that is invisible. Happiness is invisible, although it is eternal. Love is invisible, although it is eternal. Like, how much does love weigh? What's the length of happiness? You cannot measure happiness and love, all of these eternal, real stuff, with anything of physical measurement. You can tap into it using the words, using the blessings, using the consciousness. That's why it says le'ovda u'leshomra. That's why it says tishmerun la'asot. When you have that consciousness, then you connect not just to the outer shell, but you connect to the inner bliss. But you have to activate it. That's why it says tishmerun la'asot. It's not enough to do. People, they just say, I prayed 3 times a day, I did this blessing. But there was no consciousness. There was no heart, there was no desire, there was no connection, and the mind did not connect to the upper world. And the result is, you stay empty. And especially in our world, that we are so much distracted with so much of overstimulation of what? The external, the physical, and what happens? You're so busy with that external stimulation, no spiritual communication, no ability even to focus into the spiritual realm behind everything. The result is you stay empty. So maybe you accumulate beautiful cars that you have to switch every year or two because you must own the latest model. And maybe it's about your purse, it's about your clothes, it's about your shoes, it's about your smartphone. You always have to get the best, the beautiful, most advanced, and you're just in the cult of consumption, consumption, consumption. Who do you serve? The international big companies. You serve them. You are their slave. You're simply consuming, you're shopping till you're dropping. Okay? You shop till you drop and you eat till you pop. And why? Because you stay empty. And then, because you stay empty, emptiness is very painful. And that's why you get addicted to all kinds of drugs. Because of the internal pain. You want to stop it, you have to understand what it says over here. You have to tap into the spiritual dimension. So now you understand why the Talmud and the Jewish law is so full with laws of acquisition and ownership and guardian, and all of this stuff, because it has a very deep spiritual meaning. And one of the most famous stories is that story that I really love because it is shocking. During that time that Rabbi Zachariah lived in Tzfat, Tzfat was a big hub of innovation in the textile business. Most of the Kabbalists that lived in Tzfat were in the textile business. Most of them had factories. Okay, even Rabbi Zachariah. He went to Tzfat. He didn't live on anybody's account. He bought a factory and he ran the factory. During the day he was in the factory. After he paid the salaries, he went home to study with his friends. Okay, now, but there's a story that a friend of his, that one of his students, who was also a great Kabbalist, comes one day to Rabbi Zachariah and says to him, Rabbi, I need your help. I have a feeling that I'm almost complete. I almost completed my tikkun, my correction. My soul is almost complete, but there's something bothering me. And I can't find what is it. Can you help me? Do you see what's wrong with me? And Rabbi Zohar is looking at him. He says, he thinks and he thinks, and then he says, what I see, I cannot tell you exactly. I can give you a hint because you have to find it yourself. I see that you have what is called safek gezel. It's robbing, but it's kind of the edge of robbing. It's not legally robbing, but it has a taste of robbing. It has a smell of robbing. Although legally it's okay, but if you want to complete your soul, that's not enough. So that student goes home, and for days he contemplates and meditates and trying to think where I'm so careful about what I'm doing. And then finally, after a few days, he goes to his own factory. He ran a factory of weaving threads. He calls all his workers into his office. On the table, he puts money, all kinds of, coins, big one, chain, whatever. And he says, I have a wish, a request from you. I know that there's at least one of you that feels that I did not pay them fairly. They feel that I was supposed to give them more, but they never dare tell me that. So whoever feels that they deserve a higher wage, please step up and take as much as you think you deserve. Nobody moves. He's waiting, and he's waiting, then nobody moves. So he starts to cry. He said, please have some mercy for my soul. I know that one of you, at least, feels that he was not paid properly. That's called unfair trade today. Okay? Please have mercy for my soul and take the money. Finally, one of the workers, a woman, steps up, and she picks few coins, and she goes back to her place. He runs to Rabbi Zohar. He says, look at me. Am I complete? And Rabbi Zohar says, you are complete. Now can you tell me what happened? And Rizal is saying, look, this lady, she's much more professional than the others. She makes the threads much faster, so she produces much more than the others, which means you make much more money on her than on others. And the threads she's making, they are thinner and stronger. That's why you get more money for the threads she's making. She knows that, but she's too shy, and she respects you. She says if he doesn't see it, but deep inside she knows she deserved to be more, and you didn't see that. That's why. Do you understand how fine is that issue of stealing and robbing? That if you don't, you go to someone and you buy from him, and you have to make sure they are also okay with the acquisition, with the business deal, because otherwise, if they are not happy, you cannot be happy. It's called win-win, or the tree of life business, and that's why the Zohar says, העמידו חברים שסובב, it says when it says גוזל אביו ואמו, you rob your father and your mother if you don't say the blessings. משום שהברכות שהאדם מברך את הקדוש ברוך הוא. I'm reading just from the beginning of the Zohar in the Sulam. The blessing that the person is blessing God, באים, their job is להמשיך חיים עם מקור חיים. They are to draw life from the source of life. Okay, the source of life. And we see that again and again, because the word Baruch is also the same word, because the shoresh is bet reish kaf of brecha. What's brecha? A pool. What's a pool? Also in English, a pool, let's say a pool, that's a pool of something, not just water, be a pool of something valuable, a pool of knowledge, okay, a pool of tools. We are talking about the upper pool of bliss. And when you say Baruch, you open the valve, and the bliss starts to flow down just by saying the word Baruch. Ata Hashem Elokeinu. Now you build up the pipe. Now the pipe is open up, and that flow comes in. And that brings the light to the holy name of God, to Lishma Kadosh El HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ולהריק עליו מאותו שמן העליון, and that will allow the supernal holy oil, which is also a metaphor, right, for the bliss coming from above. משם בא להימשך לכל העמים, from there it comes and flows to the whole world. So when we say the blessings, we allow that flow of spiritual stuff to be revealed in the world. You don't say it because you want to appease God, or if not, so going to say God is going to punish me. No, it's like you create a punishment by simply not activating. It's like you're standing in front of the faucet, you put it in the cup, and you're waiting, and nothing comes out. Why? Because you have to open the tap, right? And then you're drinking, but in this case you didn't open the tap, and it's empty. He says, God, I get nothing. Open the tap. How? Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu. That's how you open the tap. And that's Tishmeru Lasot. You have to be take responsibility. Oh God, why don't you give me this? Why don't you give me this? Did you open the tap? I didn't know I have to open. How do I open the tap? Why don't you just give it to me? Look, let's say there's a money in the bank and you have your wallet. The money does not jump into your wallet. Soon it's going to be, or you already have it in the cell phone. But you still have to do some actions. You have to access, you have to give a password, you have, right? It doesn't just jump into your wallet. So, now we have a question we didn't answer yet. Why is it used? Remember, the whole thing about the torture, Ya'ancha, the infliction. And Rabbi Zakloria is saying as follows. On Yom Kippur, it's different than the rest of the days. During 364 days of the year, we need to connect to God's bliss through physical actions. Let's say water. And when I say the blessing on the water, it's not just the water is H2O, but it's also the bliss inside the water. When I say the blessing on the bread, on fruits, whatever, I awaken that blessing. And what happens is that I need a physical composition to activate it in order to bring in a spiritual force. Like I have to eat food. You know, you pray Friday night, you pray, you do Kabbalat Shabbat, but then you have to make a blessing on wine and bread, right? The challah. You need physical thing. Same thing in a wedding. It's a very happy thing, but did you see a Jewish wedding without food? Impossible. You have to make again a blessing on wine and then at least the bread. Circumcision, Brit Milah, same thing. Yes, they bless, they cut, they bless, wine, and then bread. You have to. On Yom Kippur, says Rabbi Zakloria, it's a day of total freedom. Motzah Pi Hashem, we connect to that light of God without any intermediates. I don't need any physical means. I can connect directly to the source, directly to the pool. That's why it says that Yom Kippur is like a big mikveh. What is a pool? A mikveh. So you are in the mikveh the whole day. And that's purifying. Yom Kippur Metael. The day of Kippur is purifying. Just being there. And then you connect directly to the original pool. That's how high it is. But in order to reach so high, you have to shut down the physical aspect of destruction, which is food, which is all the physical stuff that we connect, that our brain is busy with. You have to shut it down. And how? And that's why, what does it say about Yom Kippur? In Yom Kippur, there are 5 what? They translate it into afflictions. We don't eat, we don't drink, we don't take a shower, we don't wash, we don't use any ointment, we have no sexual marital relations, and no leather shoes. You don't do that on Yom Kippur. And they are called Chamisha Inuim, 5 tortures. Torture? What's the shorish of the word Ve'initem et nafshotechem, or here, leman anotcha. The shosh is Ayin Nun Yud. What does it mean? Poor, lack of. Which means here it doesn't appear, it doesn't come from the word to torture, it's coming from the word of avoiding and disconnecting. Because it's like being poor. What does it mean being poor? What is somebody who's poor? He has no money, no home, no food, no clothes. So the word ani means that he has no, he doesn't have. It's negating having anything. So when we say, let's go back to verse 2 and 3 in chapter 8. God says, why did I give you the manna? So, to make you poor. What does it mean poor? Let's say, think about it. How much people invest in food? Time, thoughts, care, money, getting it, making it, getting rid of the remnants, and then dealing with, the heartburn, getting rid of it in the bathrooms, whatever. That's a whole thing. In the desert, we had manna. You know what does it mean? You get up in the morning and you have your manna in front of your tent. Okay? It has all the vitamins you need. It has all the proteins you need. You don't have to calculate. Did I eat enough of that? Did I eat? So what about chopping? You understand how much time is being left? You take your manna, you eat it, enough. And the manna was so pure, you didn't have to go to the bathroom. So when it says, so what do you have time? And then it says the clouds of honor took care also on your clothes. Which means you didn't have to go shopping for clothes. Your clothes, you just lift them on your chair. When you went to sleep, you took off your clothes, you put it in the morning, they were ironed, clean, whatever. Do you understand? For 40 years, no distractions. Just what? So what did we do? You don't have to make food. You don't have to cook it. You just eat the manna. That's it. It's over with. You don't have any health problems because of eating the wrong food. You don't have to go to the doctor to tell him, I have some this, and maybe you ate something. No, nothing like this. The manna was healing. Nobody had any digestive issues. Do you understand how much time does it leave you with? What do you do? When you are poor, with all of this physical distraction, you can only do what? Connect to God. Connect to spirituality. Study with Moses. No excuses. Oh, I had to go because to make food for the guest. What do you mean food for the guest? You don't need to make food for the guest. You have manna, right? So the word le'anotcha does not mean to torture you. It means it made your physical experience poor. Like on Yom Kippur. The body is poor, but the soul is rich. Because on Yom Kippur, you do not need to indulge your body with any physical experience. And as a result, what they say, that when a person has an epiphany, a spiritual revelation, there's something, scientists are saying there's something that in the brain waves that look like epilepsy. What's epilepsy? Did you notice that many of the prophets, it says, in the moment they had a revelation, they fell on their face? That's epileptic seizure, right? Why? Because you have to shut down that part of the brain that makes a lot of noise. Food, taste, body, feeling, muscles, whatever, all of this. When you have an epiphany, all of that is shut down because that noise is covering up. So what do we do on Yom Kippur? We connect to the spiritual. We connect to the spiritual realm and in order to do that, remember that in the old times there was switchboard? What do you do in the switchboard? You switch it off for one and you connect to another. What do you do in Yom Kippur? You switch it off from the physical noise of the body. Food, shoes, this and that and that and that, electricity, work. No, in Yom Kippur, I'm switching it off. That's called le'anot. to make it poor. It's negating all physical experience and switching on the real world experience of real spiritual fulfillment. Now, when it's not Yom Kippur, every time that we approach anything of a physical joy, we have in a way to shut down a little bit the body experience and allow in the spiritual experience in order to achieve a real, lasting fulfillment. That's called being spiritual. So when a person is occupying himself, involving himself with that, always training your mind, not just to connect to the taste, the color, the structure, whatever. That is never enough. People like, it's not enough today just that you ate. It's like, which chef did you eat with? Or you understand what I'm saying? It has to be so overstimulation because it's not enough. It's not enough not because it's not colored enough. Not because it's because you did not tap into the bliss within the food because of lack of consciousness and the right actions. So this week is a very powerful week for all of us to work on our spiritual involvement, our spiritual focusing. That, yes, every time that we get ourselves busy with everything, shopping, buying, selling, whatever you do, eating, cooking, there's always a spiritual dimension. And the spiritual dimension is where we get our fulfillment from. So if we are not training ourselves to connect to that dimension, you feel lack. Then you feel poor, and you don't understand why. I have so much and I still feel poor. That's a real richness. Who's rich? The one is happy with his share. To be happy with your share, with whatever you got, and not just to be happy, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get more, but the moment you're happy with your share, you can feel like that's so exciting, I would like to have some more. But if you're not happy with your share, you didn't even start getting happy. You didn't even get anything. You just only get external. And that's why the Zohar says the spiritual. Let me complete with that. So there's a special additional explanation that Rabbi Ashlag is adding to the Zohar on, it's called Mar'ot HaSulam, the sides of the ladder. Every pleasure that person enjoys, it's from God, because that's a source of pleasure, as we said, light. But if the person is making a blessing, the moment I make the blessing, I am extracting that pleasure, that light, from the physical place where it's vaulted and locked in. I make it revealed in the universe, not just for myself, say the sages, for the whole world, because I move the whole of humanity one step ahead. And that's how all the bliss coming to all the worlds. And that's how the person really feels joy, lasting and true fulfillment. But if a person had joy, had pleasure, and he did not bless, it's only external. And that's why it's called he's stealing from God. What does it mean, stealing? You take only the external and not the internal dimension, which is 99.99% of everything. Okay, and why it says Gozel Aviv ve'imo? It says it's like stealing from your father and your mother, because your father is the level which is called Zerapin, the Holy Blessed Be, and your mother is the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the divine spirit. What mean you stealing? You simply do not activate the 100%, but only the artificial layer. And because of that, you stay poor forever. And that's why the consciousness is so important during prayer, during a blessing, during everything that you do. And when we do that, Rabbi Ashlag explains, it affects the whole world. Because when a person is so focusing and working to get more and more focused on the spiritual aspect is like shifting the whole of mankind towards positivity. And when you and that is something very important, because he says, Rav Ashlag, when you do that and you really give a lot of power to the soul, to the spiritual, you just shift the whole of humanity into being more spiritual. And what does it mean? Every person has two parts, internal and external. When you feed only the external, then around the whole world, external forces get more power. These are the robbers, the killers, the warmongers, all of this stuff. But when we strengthen the spiritual part, the spiritual dimension inside us, that's strengthened. All over the world, the people who care for honesty, for spirituality, for peace, for building, for creating. So that's why the Talmud says every person has to see himself. Like by my action, I can shift the whole world into good or into evil, because we are all connected and everything is one. So this is the week. This is what we have to work on. And that will answer us many of our questions about why is it that I'm doing this and this and I'm not still happy? Why I'm doing this and this and I don't feel content? Why I'm doing this and it looks right, but something is missing. Consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. Focusing, focusing, meditating, meditating. You need to exercise. And as the Zohar says, without hard work, you want to get success, overnight success, only after many years of hard work. Right? Troubles come for free. And success comes with a real lasting success, with a lot of effort. So, thank you everyone, and Shavua Tov, have a good week.